this should be okay. Yeah, this should be okay. Alright. So, for people in the chat, the original tweet that Phil posted was, part of what makes failure hard, or so hard, is it doesn't usually stem from a lack of effort.
Yeah, and I actually want to preface this tweet before we get into it and talk about the background, what prompted the tweet. Is that cool? So what prompted the tweet in the first place was I was painting my room, right? I was like, I have paint. I have a shitty white wall, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna paint this shitty wall. I got some paint. All right, I've been talking about doing this for like a year. I'm just gonna go do it. I'm finally gonna do it. I'm gonna paint this wall, right?
Mm.
So I get the paint. I get the roller. I set all the shit up. I move everything around my room. And I paint. And I paint my wall. It takes like 3 hours. Got half of it done. And at the end, I'm done, right? And I'm like, yo, this wall looks really shitty. It's a bad wall. I did a really bad job. I wasn't looking at all. It's like, wow, this is really bad. And I was like, then I started thinking, even though it looks bad, it still took me a hell of time to do it. I still had to do all the things that someone who knew what they were doing and was sick of painting walls would do. I still had to get the paint. I still had to get the roller. I still had to set everything up, push everything around my room, wait the hour for it to dry, then do it again. Like, it still took mad long. It just sucked. And then that kind of brought me back to Melee. Because I remember when I would, when I started getting better and I got to a certain point, and then I would look back at like some of the people who had gotten stuck, who had never really improved, and kind of always stayed where we had started. And they would like be frustrated, and I always was like, look at them, and I'd be like, oh, I never really got it. I just thought that they were frustrated. I was like, well, I don't get it. I just figured they weren't trying hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you guys just aren't, whatever. I didn't even understand why they were frustrated. And then like a couple months ago, I ended up like, I actually had the revelation that like they were trying. Like they were giving their best shot. They just actually didn't know what they were doing. They just, whether it be they had bad practice habits. What they didn't have the right mentality. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't just because they weren't trying. I think before it was very easy for me to look at someone and say, when they weren't where they wanted to be, that they weren't giving enough. Like they weren't putting in enough effort. So that's what prompted the tweet, and that's how I got to where I'm at.
Okay.
And then you posted something. Tell me what you think. What you had? Because you had an opinion that you didn't fully share, and yeah, tangent you held back.
Yeah. So I said I agree and disagree at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And this is because the first thing that I think of when people say like that they tried their best is that no, they didn't.
Let's go, Doug. Tell them.
Because so let me preface this by saying that I don't think I have ever tried my absolute best at anything. I don't think I've given my all, my 100%. That's not to say I don't care about things. Like obviously I care about Melee and I care about getting better, but have I truly done everything that I can to get better at Melee? The answer is no. Yeah, and I think that's true for almost everybody.
I think that's true for 99.9% of people.
Yeah. And so like for people that are trying to get better like at Melee and they like are putting in the effort and like all this stuff that you said, like they have like bad practice habits, stuff like that. It's like there's so many things available to them for them to just get over that, especially now compared to before.
Well, especially now it's like laid out for you.
Like people like
to a certain extent it's laid out for you.
Yeah, people like Cyrox, people like Kale. That would have been impossible. Like 100% when you started, and then even when I started, there's just a complete lack of resources.
Yeah.
And so the gripe that I have mostly is that when people talk about effort, they always talk about like hours spent or just like time thrown at something, when that's not the definition that I like to use.
What is your definition of effort?
My definition of effort is like doing everything that you can to make sure something goes well. Like for example, like with you like painting the room, right?
Yeah.
I would have done like a lot of prior research to actually
Oh yeah,
penning it.
definitely.
Um, and just like done every like did like some small amount of research to make sure that like I wasn't doing anything wrong and like
Hmm.
stuff like that.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely. Definitely. I think that time spent thing is definitely true. There's definitely a lot to that. Um, I think a lot of times when you hear about people that are successful, you hear first about how much time they put into it. Like they'll say, like, I'll hear Daigo practices 6 hours a day.
mhm,
Kobe Bryant took 2,000 shots every day over the summer, right? Like,
mhm,
wow, that's a lot of time spent. That's a lot of effort. But it's like it's kind of I think what you're alluding to is that you have to know how to use that time. Time, there could be a ton of time wasted. Like
mhm.
when I go to the gym, I'll see guys that are at the gym all day, like 3 4 hours they're at the gym, but half the time they're not doing shit. They're just like
Yeah.
they're watching TV, they're talking with their homies. They're kind of half-assing through their sets. Like they'll do a set, they take a 20-minute break, they walk around. And there's plenty of people that put 45 minutes in and are getting better results. So
Mhm.
time spent isn't simply like what effort is. I completely agree with that. It's definitely a big part of it. If you told me you're giving your best effort and I said how much time are you putting in every day, and you told me 25 minutes, I probably wouldn't believe you.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not all it is. It's definitely a time. It's definitely a part of it. But I was thinking about what it meant to get better at anything to me, and I think a lot of it's understanding.
Mhm.
When you're bad at something and you got better, part of it's because you knew what to get to work on. When you suck at melee and someone says, "Yo, you should L cancel," you're like, "Oh yeah, that would make me better. I understand how that would work. I would be faster, and I'd be able to do more shit." So you do that, right? And like I think a lot of that for melee is true. When you're at a certain level, everything makes sense because you just add something to your game and you're better because
Mhm.
you're like you have there's so much room for improvement. But at one point, at anything, and not melee, just in life in general, whatever you work on, it becomes harder and harder to see. The understanding becomes more difficult to come upon. It's like, well, I'm not really sure and I think that's where the plateaus come from because the things are so much. They're not easy to see.
Mhm.
The difference between left and an SFAT. People could tell me very broad things, but a lot of it would probably be very abstract. It wouldn't make as much sense because the line is it's much smaller.
Mhm.
So that's I think to me, understanding is really a big part of improvement in anything.
Mhm. So yeah, and like the understanding, like so like when people start off and they're improving, it's always yeah, like you said, it's like super obvious things, right?
Yeah,
Like you work on your tech skill. After your tech skill's at a certain point, you can beat everybody that doesn't have tech skill, and then after that, like you learn how to do your punish game, and then you start being able to beat everybody that doesn't have a punish game. And then it's just like it goes in increments, and then people always reach a point where they honestly just don't know what to do next.
yeah,
And so there's different types of people. The first kind of person is the one that's like, okay, this is what I did to get here. I'm just gonna do more of it,
yeah. 100%
right?
agree with that.
And it's like, well, there's a cap, right? To uh, like how good your tech skill is realistically going to be, how good your punish game is going to be. There's like other parts of the game that you have to improve on.
Hmm.
And so the second kind of person, which is the majority of top players, whether they do it consciously or just subconsciously, is they'll start looking at other things like what are other people doing that I'm not doing that's making them better. Like is there like a guide somewhere, like can somebody explain to me like how this works or how I can do this. And so the first kind of person I like, yeah, they're throwing hours at the screen. The second person probably is using less of their time actually pressing buttons and more of their time actually like studying or looking up other resources. The exception obviously being like the players that have like other top players near them where you can just play and just
Yeah,
naturally get good. So like SoCal and NorCal, for example.
yeah,
And that's why like in a lot of situations, talking for me personally, talking to some SoCal and NorCal players is really difficult.
hmm
Because they learned almost everything by feel, and so they can't really verbalize what they're doing. Um,
yeah. Makes sense.
some is similarly for some people like Kobol. He's also a player that goes very much by feel, and so like the things that they say are super abstract. And when I talk to them about melee, it takes some time to like this is what they're saying, but like this is what they're really saying.
Yeah, bridge the gap, right?
Yeah. So like that's how I feel about effort. Is that like, are you really doing everything that you can, or are you just like trying to do the same shit and trying to get better that way?
Oh, I agree. I think I can definitely say I'm guilty of doing just the same thing expected, and just that's the definition of crazy. Right? Just doing the same thing over again, expecting different results. So I can definitely speak to being in that category at different points.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think that's a true. I definitely think that's a true statement.
Mm-hmm. And then the second part of that is that you said that part of what makes failure hard is it doesn't stem from lack of effort. Yeah. I also think that like when somebody tells me that they stopped because they tried their best, that's like it's like a cop out, right? It feels good to say that too, to say that you tried your best and then you just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Because it's easy to say, right? You just say, oh, I tried my best, I just can't do it. Like, I'm just never gonna do it ever again. Like that's just it. That's where I am as a human being. I can't possibly get any better. Like peace. And so I know a couple of people like that who quit Melee because they thought that they did everything that they could. They just weren't talented enough. Blah 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 blah. But like there's like a million other things that are like standing in their way. Like the guy that says he practices 8 hours a day, but like doesn't consistently hit L cancels, like I don't believe him. First of all. Second of all, if you're practicing L cancels for 8 hours a day and you're missing them in tournament, there's like something else going on there. And then like there's also like the people that rage that say like, oh, they're better than the other person, they're just losing because like blah 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 blah. Like there's so many other things that factor into gameplay. It's just like people like, and they recognize they don't understand, right? Because like people that have thrown hours at the screen and they say, why am I losing? They acknowledge that they don't know why they're losing, but they're not trying to bridge the gap or the understanding with the resources that they have available. And that's really frustrating for me to hear, and it's really, really annoying, especially for players that have access to more resources than I did when I was improving.
The Midwest struggle.
Yeah. It's the Midwest struggle. Also like a Samus struggle. Just a bunch of stuff, and it's like, I don't want to hear that you did your best and that there's just nothing else you could have done better, because clearly you're wrong. Like, yeah. All of the evidence points towards you being wrong. I think there is a cap for people, like, skill-wise, for mental games. Like, I think there is a cap to Melee. Do I think that anybody alive currently approaches that cap? The answer is no. So, yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think that makes sense. I think I had a point. I had something else that I wanted to add to this. What was it? I had something that I thought would be good. What was it? Ah, fuck. All right. Well, damn. Yeah, I agree. I think that a lot of times people say that they gave their. That's just the thing to say. I think it's to make you feel better about. Oh, I tried my best. But I agree. I think a lot of it's like, you know, if you did or not. You know if you used all your tools available.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that only you know. No one else can tell you if you really tried their best, because they're not you. So I think a lot of people do prefer to say that they did give everything they have. But I mean, I can say for myself that there was always something more I could do. Probably. Was I willing to do it? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah, that's a really big difference.
Yeah. I think willing is a lot, and I think when anybody decides they want to get good at anything or decides to be great at anything, you have to decide what you're willing to give to it. And I think that's something that Melee players definitely struggle with. I think they want something that requires this much percentage of who they are, right? But they're only willing to give this amount, but they still want the same result. You know, they want to be this good, but they only want to put this amount of time into it and this much time into getting better, learning, putting all that work in. It's a lot to be great at anything. So I think a lot of people want that feeling of greatness, but don't actually want to put in the time that it takes or the effort it takes to actually be great. And so they say things like, I I try my best, or I just don't get it, or I'm just not talented enough, or it's only meant for certain people, or I have slow reaction time. A bunch of excuses that are just easier than saying, I actually don't want to do what it takes to get where I want to be, which is fine. I think you can say, I actually don't want to put that much into it, which is okay. But I think you need to come to that realization on your own.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you'll see a lot of mega players that are stagnant because they're not willing to say what they're willing to put into it.
Mm-hmm. So I have 2 points. There's 2 topics that stem from this. The first is that currently in Melee, there are very few people that are trying even like anywhere close to like the best that they can. A lot of our sponsored players do not practice daily or even close to it.
No.
And so it's like their job, right? Because there's a lot of smashers who have basically they've dropped school and they don't work. They are employed as Melee players.
Mm-hmm.
But these people don't actually practice like it was a job, right? It's like they get a salary and then they just do what I have no idea what they do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
That would be I honestly don't know. That's 40 hours a week that is just unaccounted for some of these people, and I have literally no idea what they do.
Yeah, neither do I.
And so it's like some of them stream daily, and like that's fine. But it's also like while you're streaming, you're not going to be improving as a player. Obviously, those things are very separate. Like having a career in esports does not necessarily mean you're the best player. Most of the time, it's the opposite. to be quite honest. Especially like games like League of Legends, like Dota, like Overwatch. They're like the top streamers sometimes just aren't. They're just not very good at the game. They're just very, very entertaining. And that's what people will pay for. People generally don't want to pay just to watch somebody be good at something, or else Armada would be the one with like 5K subs, right? Not Mango. Mango's a rare combination of somebody who's really good and who's really entertaining, but most of the time that's not the case. But it's still the point where like I don't really think any Smash players are really giving it their all. Especially since like me and Dewan are keeping up, right?
Yeah.
We have full-time jobs, right? So like what are they doing?
Yeah, you have a good point.
And so this is like almost a direct parallel to what happened in League of Legends. I played League of Legends Season 1 through part of Season 4. I don't know if you follow the game at all.
No, I know nothing about League. I just know they make a lot of money, and it's really popular on Twitch.
So basically, Season 1, the game was popular pretty much. It had a foothold competitively in North America and Europe. Season 1, it was still small.
Okay.
Europe won the League of Legends Championship, whatever. I think it was Season 2. Asia joined. So this is the Korean teams. This is the Chinese teams. This is the Taiwan team. And the stark difference in skill between the two regions was ridiculous, especially given that America and Europe both had a year to learn how to play the game, a year to create like the metagame and strategies. And basically what happened is when Korea, when the Asian countries picked up the game, they created new strategies that wouldn't be adopted in like the US or Europe until like a month later. So both of these regions were behind consistently by a month every single time something came out, and this is with them having a head start on the game. And it was a difference in competitive game culture where like the Korean players moved into a house almost immediately. They would practice the game as a team, and they would also take care of their physical health, because that has a direct correlation to how to mental health, right? And like how you can play the game. And so these are all things that you've seen like North America adapt. Like almost directly after season 2 ended, all of the major North American teams moved into houses. They hired personal trainers, they hired cooks. They started making the team actually practice together instead of just like everybody streaming individually and like playing like by themselves. But like I don't think very many people would be able to go up to one of the North American pro players at the time and say, "Hey, you're not trying your best." So it was, yeah. So that's how I feel about like the difference between like people who actually have like a goal and who are trying, is that they have like a schedule, they're like disciplined, they actively practice, all of that stuff, compared to just like what people in North America did, which is where Smash is now. Really,
I agree.
Is that most of our top players don't practice. That's just a fact.
No, I've hung out with most of them, and I can say that that's also true.
Yeah, and so it's like a lot of players are currently being carried by like research done by somebody else, or they like okay, Cardano literally has 2 posts on Smashboards. The first post has every throw follow-up percentage against Falcon by Marth. Zero Marth mains follow that flowchart. Zero of them. Actual zero of them. He also has another post about Marth versus Puff throws into kill percents.
And it was used once.
No, it wasn't. I
thought Kevin used it against Hungrybox.
I have only seen Kevin do forward throw and down throw pivot forward smash. That's it.
Yeah.
That post that Cardano has, it includes wave dash F smash depending on DI and percent. It also includes wave dash into down smash depending on DI. We're lucky that Hungrybox has also not seen the post because Hungrybox also DIs really badly. But none of the Marth players use that. Or if they do, they're really bad at it. So that's just the state of Melee currently, is people don't really put in as much effort as they could be. At least none of the top players that we've seen. Yeah, I think Leffen is probably the closest that we have to somebody that actively puts time into the game, and is like actually like trying some amount. Well, that's not entirely fair, but basically, I know Leffen practices. I know for a fact Leffen practices. I know that he talks to like his personal trainer at TSM, and like he does like the things that he can to like try to get better.
Yeah.
And this is not to say that that's the only way to improve. Obviously, there's like different avenues of improvement. Like for some of our top players, maybe actually practicing or like actually pressing buttons on a controller is not the best way to get better. Maybe the best way is to study videos or have discussions with other people. And so like I know Armada and Mewtwo King share information all the time, and they do actually improve together that way. And so it varies based on person. So like I'm not going to say that like the Korean way of moving into a house and like being super scheduled. I'm not going to say that that's the best way of doing it. It's obviously
one of the better ways.
I think it's one of the better ways, and it's like it's something that's like tried and true, right? Yeah. Like most people, like at the very least, you will improve. At the very least, maybe it's not the best way for you personally to improve, but at the very least, you will improve.
So the closest thing I think we've ever had to that was the Summit House.
Yes.
Summit. You feel like when you were in that environment that you were getting better?
Yeah, it was amazing. That's one of the few tournaments where I feel like I actually play somewhere near my cap or like my peak.
Yeah.
Usually at tournaments I feel like I'm playing at like 70% ish, somewhere around there. But at Summit, it was like it was like a solid like 90. It felt really good because everybody was focused on playing better. Like people generally weren't sandbagging, with the exception of Hungrybox.
You got the strat, dude.
But yeah, he does, he does his own thing. So yeah, like the having coaches outside of the game, I think is a really solid step. It's a lot easier to listen to somebody else tell you what to do than it is for you to figure it out yourself and then do it. Because it's like 2 steps instead of just 1 step, right?
Yeah.
Like if I don't know how Bobby Siege and Zach work, or like I don't really know how any of the coach relationships truly work. But for Crunch and HBox, I think at least from what HBox said, it's like Crunch will do analysis on like situations and like just stuff like where HBox is giving stuff away for free, and then he'll try to correct it, and HBox will try to implement it. That's significantly easier for Crunch to do, even though he's not as good as of a player, obviously.
Yeah.
Because it's like the stuff that we're trying to break as Melee players, it's like stuff that we've been doing for years. Like maybe Hungrybox rolled in from the ledge probably for like 8 years straight before Mango up smashed him at EVO. Probably 8 years. And then he never did it ever again because it scarred him for life, basically. But it's like that's something that like it shouldn't have taken that long, right? For him to stop doing. You'd think, right? But it's really difficult to self-correct as a player. And so like that's just taking advantage of resources available to you, like hiring Crunch as a coach, as like something that Team Liquid is willing to do. That's amazing. And that's more like that goes more towards like back to the talking point of like effort, is like truly using all of the resources available to you, like regardless, like for a common goal. Because like before this, I think we have a culture of like everybody does things on their own, basically, right?
Definitely.
And like when people like ask questions to other people, it's always in private, right?
100% true.
It's like people people DM Cardano and like Practical TAS and like Typo. They don't publicly ask them. It's all DM stuff. It's like it's all very hush hush when it should be like public. It should be like public, right? Yeah. Like there's no reason for you to be ashamed of having to ask these people frame data. It's just like a pride thing, right?
Agreed. Yeah.
And so it's like, yeah, people should be using all the resources they have available to them before they say that they tried their best.
I definitely agree with that. I think I want to touch on something you said earlier too. When you talked about people kind of coasting on what other people's knowledge, it's really interesting to me that a lot of the best Melee players aren't the most informed, right? There's so many Melee players that are mid-level, right? That know so much more about the game than anybody else, you know? I remember Sammy Drugfox making a point. He's like, yeah, like the best players aren't the ones that come up with shit, you know? They just someone else does it and then they take it and they're better, so it works, you know?
Yeah. It's because like in almost every case, it's like so let's say like 70, or let's say like top players know like 70% of the game.
Yeah.
Maybe some random guy somewhere figures out like 1%, and the 1% does not overlap with the 70%. Yeah. So like the people where like it's applicable, the 1%, they'll suddenly become 71%. This is because like it's super easy to just take stuff. This is like whenever new tech comes out for any character, I immediately look to see if it's applicable to my character. Most of the time it's no.
Yeah.
But when it is, I'm like sick. Like, let's go. Like, this is something that I didn't have to figure out by myself, and like somebody else did it for me, which was like it very rarely happens, but it happens.
No, I agree. Like when shield dropping just started getting popular, like I knew about shield dropping a long time ago, and I was like, whatever. And, like, yeah, it's all right. It seems okay. Like I remember like Alvin, L,
Hmm.
knew about shoulder dropping a long time ago. I was doing it way before it was like the thing to do. And like only a few players were doing it at the time. It was like Axe, Amsa. Like I remember Sung like won a tournament because he was shield drop camping. He was just camping platform and shield drop. No one knew what to do against it. It was like whoa, it was like a Yu-Gi-Oh boss. That no one had the right card to defeat at the time.
Mm.
And then I remember like everyone was kind of shield dropping, and then Armada, like immediately when he learned how to do it, he immediately got better with it. He like I remember at one tournament he came back. I think it was like Qatar. Like Qatar, he like couldn't do it. And then the next time I saw it, he could do it. You know, it was like blind. It was like bam. It was like in every situation you should be doing it, he was already doing it. So I was like, all right, well, that's impressive.
Yeah, and
but
yeah, so it's just like, I think we used to have more of a culture where it was basically like, oh, if you're not a top player, you just don't know anything.
Yeah.
Luckily, there's less of that now, because we like the community resources of like the frame data nerds, right?
Yeah, the frame data nerds.
Yeah, like people ask them questions all the time. There's also a lot of knowledge currently where it's like people just don't do it because in their mind it's too hard.
Yes, and it's crazy to me that becomes it's like there's certain things when I started I was like, nah, it's not reasonable. It's just too hard. But every year it's like, nah, it's just the person that's willing to put the time in, and it slowly becomes the standard. It usually you usually can't do it.
So this is actually a really, really cool phenomenon that happens in real life as well. Specifically, one-player sports. I don't remember what the time was, but I don't want to sound stupid, but okay, let's pretend that the world record for like the 100-meter is like X. Yeah, it was like X minutes and X seconds. Basically everybody thought it was impossible. Every runner thought it was impossible. Every trainer thought it was impossible. Then somebody broke it, and the Olympics right after, like 7 people broke it. And so I was like, what was really the difference between like that Olympics and the one before it and all the ones before it? Was it like, did people suddenly become faster, or like was there something else going on where
it shows that like mental block? Well, to me, I don't cut you off, but I guess for me it just shows that mental blocks are really a real thing. You know, people can't see something. I don't think they can make it happen. If they can't visualize it happening, it's very hard for them to make it actually happen.
Mm-hmm. And like definitely the whole like it's just too hard. I've heard that so many times in Melee. I'm guilty of it myself, of course.
I think I've heard you say it, yeah.
But like I've heard it's too hard so many times by so many players, where it's just like come on.
Yeah.
Is it actually too hard? Like this dude at my local does it consistently. Is it really too hard?
Yeah.
Or like this.
When Doc said they didn't want to up-B cancel, I was like, you guys should up-B cancel 10 years ago.
No,
like,
it's too hard.
It's not practical. Not every Doc I see up-B cancels like it's nothing.
Yeah, like number 50 on the SoCal PR probably can do it. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just, or like people say reaction tech chasing is impossible, right? But like I think every top player has played somebody that's really, really bad that can reaction tech chase perfectly.
Oh, I definitely have played people. I played this Sheik from this random part of Central California. This is the best tech chaser I've ever seen in my life. He threw me down, and then he did and before there was like the thing to do, he wouldn't do the jab reset, and then he would just power shield and grab me again.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't a thing yet, and I was like, oh, I just have to literally hope you miss it. It was like, I was like, oh, okay, this sucks. And then when we got to the tournament, he dropped it, and I won. But but I was like, wow, this is really good. I actually don't like this. You know, I think it goes to your point.
Yeah, but it's like how many times do we see top players like truly zero to death? Like the closest we get is like face roll, maybe like one or two grabs like a set, and then but like I don't think anybody else truly goes for the zero to death. Like nobody truly commits to it. Yeah, somebody in the chat just pointed out Toph losing to Tesla.
Tesla.
Okay, basically, Toph lost to Tesla in one of the Big House pools.
Oh, I thought it's a Tech Chaser Sheik, right?
Yeah, Laudandus was there, watching, and they both said that basically Tesla grabbed Toph, and Toph just exploded, and this just happened 8 times and Toph lost. And I still have no idea who Tesla is. I don't know what region he's from. I know he plays Sheik. I don't know. Oh, Pound 2016. I know nothing about this guy. I don't even know if he goes to tournaments anymore. But random Sheik player that nobody knows about can reaction tech chase. However, none of our top players can do it. So what's the difference there? I think a lot of it is mental. I also think that mental blocks are really, really difficult to break out of, especially by yourself.
By yourself, for sure.
Yeah. So yeah, the whole "it's too hard" mentality is definitely something that pervades through the Smash community. Especially since like a lot of our stuff is like 1 frame lengths, like 2 frame lengths. Like maybe you have to be perfect here. I don't know. There's just a bunch of small things that everybody could be doing better. Obviously, me included.
Yeah, no one's above it. Don't worry.
Yeah, it's just hard.
I think a lot of times people need to see it done first before they believe it's possible. They need it. Like a lot of times people say, "Well, Armada doesn't do it, so I don't need to do it." Or
oh my
they
god,
they want the precedent to be set for them first before they feel like it's okay for them to invest their time into it.
Have you ever talked to Kyle Kazu about?
Yeah,
literally.
imagine him saying that.
Oh my god, dude!
I can see him saying it already. You don't even.
I told him so many things to do as Peach, so many things, and he was just like, I don't know, Doc. Armada doesn't do this. I just don't think it's that good. I'm just like, Kyle, please.
No, a lot, and it shows. I think kind of why that mentality is why a lot of people. There's not a lot of people at the top. Most people need it laid out for them before they start to. You have to have a certain level of, I think, self-assurance to believe that what you have is good enough to be successful. So when you come up with something, you have to kind of buy into it. And I think a lot of people need someone to come up with it for them to feel comfortable using it.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people to be the first. I mean, but no one was like for ledge dashing with hacks to be the kind of one that to really make it like the popular thing to do. You kind of have to be willing to be the standard, and I think it takes a certain amount of just self-belief to be the standard, to be willing to really put yourself out there and, expand the game. A lot of people just I don't think have that level of confidence.
Yeah. I remember when Hugo was the standard Samus, and I was the super weird one, or just the bad one. But, now people say I'm the standard, and like Hugo was the weird one, even though Hugo I don't think has changed his game since then. I'm just a standard Samus now. Like Hugo's the defensive one and Plup's like the aggressive one.
You're the standard Samus now? Really?
Yeah, I've heard this from a bunch of people.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
But yeah, it's like I invented a bunch of stuff that a lot of people use. And like I regret that I didn't like name any of them after myself.
Oh yeah, that's important. I get it. You have to think of it. You have to do it, and you have to do it on VG Bootcamp if you want to a high profile.
Like the only thing that I got named after me was like the down air coverage thing, which
that's the thing?
Yeah, which I didn't even which I was the first person to do it consistently, but I didn't invent it. Spaceballs invented it.
Oh really?
But yeah. So like I'm the standard Samus now, and like people take all of my stuff, and like I'm always looking for new stuff. But it's a very, very slow process, and it's like there's a lot of tech that I've picked up and discarded initially because I'm just like, oh, like that's too hard, or like, oh, like I'm not gonna be able to use this in tournament that often, like.
Oh, that stopped me from using so many things that I'm not gonna be able to use in a tournament because you kind of know how you're gonna play. Like you're not gonna play to your peak, So it's like this might not be reasonable if I'm not playing my best.
Yeah, and it's definitely what was I gonna say? It's definitely like when you first incorporate something new, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to get worse initially, because you have to figure you first have to figure out how to do it, then you have to figure out where it's applicable, and then you have to be able to do it in tournament in those situations.
Yeah. And I think that actually, since it started, kind of links into something that I think that a point that I have with people getting better. I think that at one point, when you first start at something, you're just taking kind of like a sponge. You just take everything in. You're just willing to learn. Everything's just like new information. Most people who get better are willing to ask a lot of questions, and you'll see that most people they'll just expand their game. They'll take all the knowledge in that they can. But at one point, a lot of times where I see the plateaus is when your ego grows faster than your willingness to grow. I think at one point people's egos get big enough that it's hard to take information in, and at that point it gets harder to improve. And I think that kind of links into that as far as like being willing to add something new to your game.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna get worse, right? Well, if you're gonna get worse, you're gonna do worse. You're possibly gonna do worse. And if your ego's gotten big enough, it's harder to be willing to do that. You know, it's harder to see the big picture if you don't. If your ego's too big.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's a part. I mean, yeah, I definitely agree. You kind of have to be willing to add something to your game and be willing to do worse, especially as a high-profile player, right? Because you're constantly going to be judged all the time. Armada's lost that hasn't won a tournament in like a little bit, and all I hear is that he's washed.
Armada's washed.
Everything all the time.
He got second at Summit. He's washed.
He's washed. He's that employee that does good, set the bar so high that whenever he's just like, great but not extra great, he's just like, he's off. He's not having a bad day. The standard for him so high. So I mean, if Armada say wanted to add something to his game, and let's say that he got worse for a little bit. Let's say he started getting fourths and fifths. He would get so much abuse in Twitch chat, Reddit. Everyone would come on my stream and talk about him in film sessions. Like, I just don't think he's got it anymore, man. Maybe he should retire. You know, and you kind of have to be willing to be have that kind of scrutiny as a top player. The better, the higher up you is, the worse it is. To add stuff. So I think you have to always, you always have to kind of have that in mind, like the goals for yourself and what you want, so that you can kind of go with the current of like your results. You know, you're gonna have good tournaments, you're gonna have bad tournaments. You kind of have to be willing to work through that. And if you have a massive ego, it's hard to do that. So.
Yeah. And like back to the ego thing specifically, not to call out Marth players again, but at Summit 2, okay, so I think everybody that's watched Mutaking play Spacies, they know now about Mutaking. He jumps out and then he forwarders on reaction, Spacey side B, right?
Yeah.
At Smash Summit 2, I told Moon and I told PPU and I told Smash God at a later tournament. Every single one of them was like, I guess it's pretty good, I'll look into it, blah, 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 blah. They didn't do shit. Mutaking invented it independently of me, and he does it consistently in tournament. And now, people are like, oh my god, the setup is so good. It's so broken.
There's so many options. Look at
this, my god.
This and this.
Like, nobody's ever thought of this before. A lot of people know this. It's just like, I don't know. Like, I wish people would come up and tell me stuff. Nobody tells me shit.
I'm feeling the frustration, Doug. I'm starting to see the frustration.
I'm over here innovating your character. I'm innovating your character. And, oh my god, it's so annoying.
I get it, Doug. You come from a shitty region. You play a character that doesn't have a lot of information. You have a full-time job. And you're number 15. And all these people are complaining to you. You don't get it. I get it. It makes sense. I can see why you're frustrated.
It's annoying as shit, dude.
Nah, I definitely, like I said, it's what people a lot of times need to see someone. And it's like, instead of them going, wow, Jason doesn't do this, I could get a leg up on the competition.
And this isn't even something small. This is anytime Fox is off stage at like 40% or higher, he's just dead. Guaranteed. There's nothing he can do about it. He's just dead. This isn't something that's like situational. It's not something that's well, it is character specific, but it's like it's the most popular matchup in the game.
Uh-huh.
It works 100%, and they're just like, whatever.
No, I think again it shows that like that's why Mew King's King, right? Because Mew King says something like that and goes, "Wow, I can add this to my game, and I'll be better," right? Mm-hmm. And that's why Mew King gets to be 4th or 5th, and those players aren't. They're not like they. And again, I think it goes. People need to see someone else do it a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know if this works, and I don't have anyone to support me. You have to be willing to be the first, and that takes a certain amount. I get it. You have to be sure of yourself.
Oh, so some people in my chat are saying that people do tell me some stuff, and yeah, that's true.
Let's go duck.
yeah, no, it's true. I've been told some stuff before. I dismiss a lot of it, to be fair, because a lot of it is very situational.
Yeah.
And so like when people tell me stuff, I do testing independently to see how applicable it is, assuming that the other person know that it exists. A lot of the setups
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff that people tell me for Samus, a lot of it is this only works if the other person doesn't know about it.
Yeah.
So like for example, there's this really cool thing Gumi was doing, where you light shield on a platform. And then when you get hit off, you do turnaround charge shot, right, as a punish. This only works if you have charge shot, first of all, which is very, like, maybe like 3 or 4 times a game. Uh-huh. And this only works if they do an aerial on your shield that's high and they don't shield after it because charge shot takes so long. Okay. So if people know about it, they're just going to aerial you and then they're going to do your shield. And then
it's a one-off thing. And it doesn't actually work. It's a trick.
Yeah. And like I looked it up and it does work specifically in a situation if Puff does rising up air on light shield and you're on the top platform, then you'll have enough time to fall off and charge shot her. But it has to be a rising up air and it has to be rising in like a very specific way. But this does actually happen a bunch of times against Puff. When you're up on the top platform, they will actually up air you with that spacing. But like most of the time it's not. It's not really. So yeah, people tell me stuff. But I find I don't know. Some stuff is good. Like last hit of up air into charge shot, that's just good. That's just straight good.
Okay.
I don't do it because I'm dumb, mostly.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that setup's actually just really, really good. Yeah.
I want to touch on something you said earlier too, about why like certain players can do that random player that can do something that a top player can't. And I think that it really shows that if you put a lot of time into just one specific skill, I mean, you can get good at it, right? I mean, there's that player, that Sheik, that probably didn't have a very well-rounded game, but put so much energy into tech chasing that he was sick at it. Like, he was just really good at tech chasing. He had tons of other flaws, but he was sick at tech chasing. And it does show that, yeah, like, it means that it definitely is doable. It's possible to actually just develop a skill and get really good at it and apply it. Like, obviously, he needed to work in the tournament, but he could do it. But yeah, like you said, the work ethic of a lot of our top guys just isn't there, and that would take a lot of that stuff. React tech chasing with Sheik on a tournament on a big stage at high level. It's like it would take a lot of dedicated effort to really get that down when you needed it. Because we're talking about it being built enough of a built-in skill that when you're not super comfortable, you can still pull it off.
Mm-hmm. Okay, wait. So on Sheik, for example, there is a setup for Sheik on down throw. This works at 0%, where you down throw Fox and then you wave dash, so you do not have to deal with the left and right slight DI mix-up.
Yeah.
That's strictly optimal, strictly better than standing there. However, nobody does it.
I thought Plub does it here and there, doesn't he?
Plub does it sometimes. He doesn't do it every time. He doesn't do it at 0.
Okay.
which is like one of the harder and I feel like it's more important ones. But so the question is, why does nobody do it?
I don't know. It goes, you can, and it's weird to me. It just goes to show, I think at the end of the day, being good at Melee is just being good at fighting games. Because the two best Falcos of all time can't ledge dash. They can't. Mango can't get off the fucking ledge half the time. I mean, think about that. Like, our best players have massive holes in their game. Juan is one of the best Sheiks, and he just learned to nair out a shield.
Yeah.
One of the best Sheiks. One of the best Sheiks. Every Sheik I know can fucking nair. I can nair. It's not hard. Dewan just... And I was like, yo, you know why Mango always rolls you? Because you can't nair out a shield. So he can so you have to just roll around. You can't get out of his pressure. He's like, yeah, you're right. He doesn't learn to do it for another 8 months. It's like, you know, Mango had one tournament where he was sick ledge dashing. It was like Royal Flush, and they were still kind of mediocre. But he got off the ledge. There was a part at Summit on FD on against Hungrybox just now, and Mango can't get off the ledge, and Hungrybox he back airs him and kills him. And I was like, yo, but this it's like. But there's tons of mid-level Foxes that get the ledge so easy, but they suck at the game. Like, they have decision making. They don't know when to ledge dash. They don't know how to mix up their options off the ledge dash, but they'll hit the ledge dash every time. So it's like, it's hard because you have to have the technical aspect as well. You have to have the technical aspect.
Mm-hmm.
You also just have to know how to play fighting games. And as some of them became very clear to me when I went to hang out at Mango's house like 6 months ago. And I'm at Mango's house, and I'm like, all right, I've been playing a lot and practicing a lot. You know, I'm definitely a tryhard, and you know, like I've gotten way more technically proficient. And I'm hanging out with Mango, and I'm like, this guy doesn't fucking practice. This guy doesn't fucking practice at all. And I'm playing him, and I'm like, this guy's so fucking good. He's so good. I'm not even close to this good, and I put way more time in. Like I'm to technically like refine my game. I'm watching videos. I'm doing a lot, but I'm clearly not seeing the game the way he's seeing it. It's not even close. Like, the gap is massive. But I can get off the ledge anytime, you know. I can get off the ledge, but it's like there's so, and like I remember Armada didn't know something that like Lod knew. It like would have been super helpful to his game. It's weird because I think at the end of the day, so much of it just comes down to decision making and. You can mask the holes in your game by just knowing when to do and knowing what your opponent's gonna do. But yeah, I just think it's funny.
Oh, also for the chat, Laudanis got 5th at Pound, not knowing how to nair out of shield as well, or not being able to nair out of shield.
You know, I can't fucking nair out of shield. Guy got 5th, right? Spark nair out of shield all fucking day. Gar, you guys know Gar? He was in the rap. He knows how to nair out of shield. You know? I know there's some bad. I know that your aerial interrupts are like I see you do them sometimes. You know, I know there's a mediocre Samus right now that hits aerial interrupts every time, but he probably does shitty up Bs and can't combo. You know?
Yep. Gumi has some of the greatest combo videos of all time.
Yeah.
The tournament that I was at, unfortunately, he got upset and we didn't get to play. But Laudanis is in the chat talking about fundamentals. And that's true. Fundamentals is more important. However, if you're a top player and this is literally your job and you have 40 hours a week and you still can't nair out of shield, what are you doing?
Yeah, no, I agree. I honestly don't know how we got into this culture where it's like, I mean, like the same way Mew2King can't pivot at like 17%. He does an up tilt every time on a D, and he has to tech chase after. It's not that hard. And Mew2King has access to every good controller possible. He's Mew2King. Someone will give him a controller that can do consistent pivots. But he'll do an up tilt, and then he'll have to tech chase. And it works. Most of the time because people miss the tech, and then he gets them. And
it's because people assume he's not going to up tilt, so they don't DI the up tilt. If he up tilts at that percent, he should actually get nothing.
Yeah, exactly. But he gets something every time. People are terrified. They don't want to get 8 on. You know, they're not trying to get the Reddit clip. So they but yeah.
Also, you don't actually have to pivot. You don't actually have to pivot grab. You can dash. You just dash forward and you dash back and you jump cancel.
Get it? He does it all the time. All the time.
But yeah, I think back on the Mango, I think the Mango topic, I think being good at Smash is a lot about mentality more than a lot of other things. Um, Mango and Hungrybox are actually okay. So I actually think Mango and Hungrybox, the way they view the game is really similar.
That's why he would hate to hear you say
Funnily,
that.
yeah, I know.
He's so mad.
I know. Funnily enough, both of them don't have very. If you ask both of them about the game, I don't think they could. Either of them could articulate very well exactly what they're doing and why. Obviously, Hungrybox is really defensive, but that's just because he wants to win.
Yeah.
If you've ever played Hungrybox in just friendlies that don't matter with like random characters, he's actually really aggressive. He just does moves. Unfortunately, his character can't do that, which is why like if you talk to Mango about why he switched away from Puff, that was like one of the main reasons that he did it is because he didn't feel like he could do the stuff that he wanted to do anymore with Puff, and he felt like he could with Spaceys. So I think it's a lot about mentality, and like just not doing anything that's bad.
Yeah.
Like when was the last time you saw Armada do something and you're just like, oh, that was bad?
Hardly ever.
Yeah. So,
a couple times on like really big that down air that he did at Evo in like 2000. It's so rare that I can remember the moments. They're mostly Young Link. The down air, the uncanceled down air at Apex that made us have to do a second set. It's one of the worst down airs I've ever seen. And then he had one more bad down air at Evo, I think in 2014. But those are the only two. They're both Young Link.
But it's like compare Armada and Mutaking's and Leffen's knowledge to Mango and Hungrybox's.
You wouldn't know that if you didn't know Melee. You wouldn't think Mango and Hungrybox were good if they were all talking.
Yeah. If you asked the five of them questions, like anonymously, you would assume that Leffen, Mutaking, and Armada are amazing at the game, and that Mango and Hungrybox are both terrible.
Yeah, 100%.
This would just be the assumption, but
there's some hacks in there too. They would all look like this. I'm like, these guys suck.
Yeah. And so I think there's like but like the common thread is that they all want to win, and they don't do bad stuff. Like
Yeah.
Mango does bad stuff, yeah. But it's like all his bad stuff still covers some options. And his defensive, like, he'll get hit a lot, but you notice that when he gets hit most of the time, it's like it's not a move that leads to death, right?
Yeah.
Like he'll do a bad nair, and then he gets like I'll forward tilt him, right? For being like too aggressive, and it'll be like, okay, right? Like he's fine with that.
Yeah.
Which is why like when he plays against like Mutaking, he like really has to rein it in compared to how he plays against a lot of other people, because they're like the punish for doing a bad aerial is just gonna get grabbed, and then Mutaking is obviously really good off of the grab.
It's funny too. I asked him actually at something after I played Mutaking. I was like, he actually gave me, and the advice he gave me was very similar to that video that he made about Falco. I'm Fox, but it was pretty much the same thing, that same explanation. Did you see his video about how he played against Mutaking?
I did not.
Oh, it's such a good video. I know someone in your chat can link it. It's like pretty much he talks about threat zones and where Mutaking's a threat and where he's not a threat, and he like draws a line. He doesn't like paint. It's actually the best explanation I've ever seen. Someone in your chat should for sure link it. But he just says like, yeah, and this is the threat. Like when he can dash attack and he can force smash. This is a threat zone, and when I'm out of this zone, I'm safe. And when I'm in this zone, this is when I need to be careful of these options. But it was very, very basic. Something that you would not get from most Melee players. It would be very abstract. It would be there'd be some frames in there somewhere. It would get much more convoluted. Mango's just like, oh, when this happens, I do this. It was very simplistic, but it made perfect sense. And I was like, yeah, I mean, like you said, I think he doesn't do bad stuff. And I really
it can be bad. It can be bad. It's just he's not going to get killed for it most of the time.
Yeah, and I think I think he deserves a lot of credit for too, and I think a lot of top players, especially that, is that he doesn't have a lot of empty decisions. There's a purpose. There's always like purpose with what he's doing, which I think goes again with just having fundamentals and knowing how to play fighting games. Is that I watch a lot of players in my class, mid-level players. It's just a lot of shit. It's like I think you're just doing it to do it. Like you have the PP talk about like a timer where people just do shit.
Yeah.
See that where people just like you just see a Fox Naren, see someone down smashing. You know, it's just like, well, these are like options that are good and they work against most people, so I do them. Whereas Mango, it's like he's definitely playing the person. He's definitely accounting for what they're doing, the position they're in. He might not be able to articulate, but he's definitely aware of it. Which is probably why it's so exciting to watch, because he's one of the people that interacts and is aware of what's happening in the game. So,
like talking to him about games after he's played them is always really, or like just naturally is always really funny. Cause he'll remember stuff like he'll say like, oh, I knew you were going to do that, or like I knew you were going for this, or like, oh, you did this last time.
Yeah.
And he'll constantly be able to say that like throughout a set and after. But like I know people where like when the game is over, they just they forget. They have no idea what just happened.
Yeah.
They know that they won or they lost, but they have no idea what happened in the game.
Exactly. And yeah, you know.
Well, okay, so I think Kalindi made this up, but Kalindi called it like the Falco syndrome. It's like you can ask any Falco player what happened during a match after they played it, and they'll have no idea.
Yeah.
This was back when he was a Falco complainer, so, but it was pretty funny. So and being good at Melee is definitely like a big. It's a huge mentality thing. Like for me too. There's I know that there's a disconnect between what I want to do and like what I should be doing. Like if I watch myself play, like I already know all of the things that I'm doing wrong generally if I watch it. But it's like it's not like what I wanted to do, right?
Yeah.
I wanted to wave dash back down smash him in the corner. And so that's what I did, even though I know it's bad.
Yeah.
And so that's not something from lack of knowledge. It's from something else. And so I'd say that's almost all like mentality stuff. And so like in a case where I would be like trying my hardest to get good at Melee, I would like ask somebody else. I would most likely ask somebody else to try to help me get over a mental block. I'd probably go to more of my locals if I didn't like have work and stuff. But yeah, it's like, there's a personal disconnect for me, and the main thing is mentality. And so like I've always felt like that was what separated like the top players from everybody else is a mentality thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think you definitely can see that even with the top players amongst themselves. I mean, I was thinking about this like in the last like even like 7 years, maybe like okay, we'll say from like 2014 or so. I mean, the events that mattered, like the big time events, like the ones that like like the big stuff. I mean, really, I think only like 4 or 5 players have won them. It's like Armada, Mango, Hungrybox, and PP have pretty much won every tournament that was like where the stakes were high. You know, Levin got the like a CEO in there somewhere like to get on my level. But besides that, like Mango, Armada, and Hungrybox win everything. They win all the big stuff. You know, what would be the equivalent of our like Wimbledons and French Opens. They get that stuff. So it definitely shows that. And I don't even think that they're necessarily that much more skilled than like Leffen or Plup or Meech King. But knowing how to win a tournament, a national, is like definitely a skill within itself. And it's obviously not easy to do it. You know, like as you get, and I think I said this earlier, as you get better, it just becomes the line gets it's harder and harder to figure out why. Like Zach and like Axe are trying to get to where Plup and Meech King are at, and like it just gets, and then Leffen's trying to figure out how to be more consistent the way Armada is, and it gets harder and harder to do, as you get better. Because when I watch like Leffen and Armada set, and losers, I'm watching the first game and I'm like, oh, Leffen's probably gonna win. He looks like he's got it. He's sharp. He's ready to go. And then at the end of the game, the first game, I'm like, Leathan lost, and I was like, oh, I don't really know what to say. He looked like the better Fox for like the majority of it, but when it gets nitty and gritty, I always like Armada's gonna win. You know, when it gets close, when it gets tight, when it's like one last hit left, I was like, well, I was like Armada has the mental edge, and that has nothing to do with melee. You know, that's an entirely different skill.
With the exception of against Hungrybox.
Yeah.
He throws it away.
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
It's really frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. But I think that's something too that's hard to distinguish is that knowing how to perform and building a skill in melee are two different things. Knowing how to perform on the biggest stages with a crowd. When there's pressure, when there's something that you've obviously put a lot of time in and want to accomplish is on the line, you know, can you still do the same shit that you would do in your room? That's a completely different skill than just learning how to do it, you know, in the comfort of your own home.
Mm-hmm.
They're you know, performance and skill and melee skill are not the same thing. Though they intertwine a lot, and we do base people on their performance, they're not always the same thing.
Mm-hmm. And so like I always treat that as like a percentage, right? Like what you can do like in friendlies and like alone in your room, that's like your 100%, right? And like what you can do like when you're analyzing a video and you're like, oh, I should have done that, blah blah blah. That's your 100%. Nobody plays that.
No one does.
Yeah, nobody. There's 0 people in the world that can do that. I think this is pretty much true across the board for everybody, like in the world, not even in Melee. And so like that's why I always treat like I'm playing at like, you know, this percentage, like 70%, 80%, blah 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 blah. And so yeah, it's a really different skill. Like for example, one of my first tournaments, there was I played a player who will remain unknown, but basically this was the first time in a tournament set where somebody was talking to me while we played the set. And I had no idea how to handle this. Like they would ask me questions, they would like complain about my character. And like they would like talk about how good they were, and I was just like, I have literally no idea what to do right now, and I like cannot focus on this game. I cannot play. And like it's not against the rules, right? Like this was back in like 2010 or 2011, and I was like, I can't, like, I'm not gonna like go up to a TO and like start complaining. Like if I complain to anybody, I sound like an idiot, right? Like, oh dude, I just lost because this guy just kept talking to me, and so it was like,
yeah, that doesn't sound as good.
And so I got bodied, and it was a Falcon player.
Oh yeah.
So this is even worse.
That was the worst case scenario.
Even worse. But this was way back in the day, and so like I was just super salty the entire car ride home, and I was just like, oh my god, how do I do this so I never lose to him ever again? And so it was just like I had to my mentality had to improve a step, so that like the next time this happened, I would just be able to just beat him, just like be the better player and just win. And so the next time we played, he tried doing the same thing. He started complaining about my character, and I just didn't say anything. I just beat the shit out of him, right? Because it's like he can't really focus on the game while he's talking to me either, right?
Yeah.
And so like he can do whatever he wants. I just beat the shit out of him. And so it's like it's stuff like that. And then like as I got better, it was like, how do you deal with like a crowd that's standing behind you? Like this was like before like all like people would go on stage and play. This was before like recording setups, before a lot of like the personal space stuff, to be honest. And it was like learning how to play like while there's like 10 people standing like right behind me yelling and cheering for the person I'm playing against. And then it was like learning how to play in front of a crowd, and these are all like tournament mentality skills that have absolutely nothing to do with getting better at the game.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the one of the best examples of performance to me in Melee is I was watching SFAT and Ice warm up separately for Genesis 3. Is this 3? Yeah, I think it's 3. Yeah, Genesis 3. And I think SFAT's warming up, against KJH and Brandon on one side, and Ice is warming up against Javi on the other team.
Mm-hmm.
And SS fucking both of them up pretty much, and then Ice is just destroying Javi really badly. And I'm like, they were playing some of the. I was like, damn, they're playing, especially Ice. He was playing so clean. He's playing so clean. It was actually insane. I was like, wow, this is gonna be a crazy Fox Ditto. I can't wait to see this Fox Ditto. This is gonna be. They're playing at their peak. And when they went downstairs, it was one of the worst Fox Dittos ever. It was awful. It was the shittiest Fox Ditto. It looked like it was like the standard of any like round 2 or 3 Fox Ditto that you would find in any tournament. You know, it was awful. And I was like, man, all they did was walk downstairs. They were warmed up. They were ready to go. They were practicing Fox Dittos. And they got on stage, and all I saw was full hop back airs, missed drop combos, poor edge guards. It was awful. And like you said, it's just a different skill. They had to learn how to play, and it's a skill you have to be. I think it's something you talked about too. You have to be kind of being willing to get worse in some ways before you get better.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you just cater to the crowd, right, you're just like you play it safe because you're in front of a group of people and you don't want to play bad. If any of those thoughts are in your head, I don't think you have any chance of getting even close to your full potential. So you kind of have to be willing to just play how you play and risk not being great, just being like, well, fuck, but you can't go into a big match like that and be like, well, I'm not going to do certain things because I'm afraid of what could happen if I fuck up, right?
Mm-hmm.
The combo that you hit normally, this is the combo you have to hit now, but if it's, if you're afraid to do it because, well, fuck, if I drop it, you kind of have to be willing to do it. So that takes a learning curve, and that, again, takes a certain amount of confidence.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, tell me if you've ever heard this before. I don't play good in tournaments, so I'm not gonna go for a while. Yeah. Or like I'm only gonna go to nationals because I'm bad at playing in tournament.
Yeah.
It's like how do you expect to get better at tournament if you don't go to tournaments?
Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree.
Mm-hmm.
Man, there's so yeah, no, I it really is crazy to me. I think when you look at our like community, some of our stuff is really bad. Like a lot of our we could be a lot better as a whole, like we have so many bad habits just as a collective.
We're so bad at this game.
We're not that good.
We're so bad.
I mean, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. I think that community's just now starting to get decent at Melee. Like we're just starting to understand what we could be, like the game. Mm-hmm. But like if the game went another 10 years, we would all look like trash.
Yeah.
Just, like you said, you can't have the highest level of play be people that don't practice.
Yeah.
It's just
that's embarrassing. Isn't that embarrassing?
It's like it's like Michael Jordan was like, if you ask him like, how many shots, and he's like, oh, I'll take a few shots here and there, You'd be like, well, that's weird. Doesn't seem right.
I've looked at Olympic training schedules.
Yeah. Oh, they're crazy.
They schedule things by the hour. And it's basically like you wake up, you eat, you train, you eat, there's cooldown, and then you train, and then there's cooldown. And then like you maybe get like 2 hours to yourself every day, maybe. And then you go to sleep, and then you do it all over again.
No, that sounds about right.
Right? And then it's like these are all like schedules like aimed towards making like the Olympian the best that they can possibly be. And like that's the example of what I think somebody giving their all looks like.
Yeah.
Is like they're like everything has been thought out. Like their entire day has been thought out so that they can reach one specific goal.
Oh, I really like that. Yeah.
And yeah, this is not to say that it would be reasonable to do in Melee.
Yeah.
Because so Loud Dennis is in the chat saying no one is going to do Olympic training routine for Melee prize money, which is fair.
Yeah, I agree.
However, I have seen a lot of people. I've seen a lot of people like give up everything to like try to get into like League of Legends, right? Or like Overwatch or like Counter-Strike. And these people like aren't good. Uh, like they
Let's go.
uh
Let's go. All in a dream, baby.
right? Like they're not good. They're not actually improving. They're throwing hours at the screen,
Uh-huh.
basically, and then just not improving. But yeah, it's the expectations for our players are just very, very low right now.
Yeah,
Very, very low.
if you compared our routine to any other professional,
Hmm.
we don't look very good. We don't
Yeah.
look very good at all. Um, I think our I think we're kind of like the way we do it is still kind of like college kids do a lot with like their classes where we kind of half-ass it and then we cram for a big tournament.
Yeah, that's how I feel it is too. Like every basically every smasher is like, "Oh, okay, this tournament's coming up like time to train for the week beforehand, right?"
Yeah.
It's like, what were you doing before? This is your job, right?
Yeah, yeah.
What were you
You know, the
doing?
Evo's coming up. Everyone, listen, 2 weeks before Evo, everyone has time to play. Everyone has time to play. Everyone's down to go. After Evo, everyone's done. They're just like, you know? No one's like, you know what, next Evo, I need to get ready for next Evo right after this Evo. I'm ready to put the time in.
Hmm.
No, it's like, nah, I'll wait till July or end of June and I'll really start getting ready, you know?
But like, okay, so a lot of people or some people are saying that like Smash is different because there's very little money. There are Street Fighter players that actually hold to a practice schedule. Tokido being the big one because Tokido also does a full time job.
Damn.
And yeah, no,
There's really
Tokido.
no
Okay,
excuse. There's
the
really no
more
excuse anymore.
the more I learn about Tokido, the more impressed I am.
Yeah.
He graduated from I think Tokyo University,
Uh,
which is like one of the best school. It's the best school in Japan, one of the best in the world.
that's definitely
And he
impressive.
has a full time job, and he's a legend. The dude is a Street Fighter legend.
Yeah.
Um, and so like
Great haircut. He has great hair. Looks
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and so he has to like he schedules his day right so that he can play. Similarly to how Amsa did it, right? Is
Hmm.
Amsa talks about how he practices before he goes to work every day.
Hmm.
Number one, so that his tech skill is good, and number two, so that he can practice playing while he's tired, because at a tournament you're going to be tired when you play.
Yeah.
No, yeah. So
Uh,
Tokido's a fucking god. I love.
no. Um, yeah, I remember reading Daigo's book, which I would definitely suggest it's a good read. It's a little there's some gems in it. It's kind of all over the place, but there's definitely some gems. And he talked about actually I looked at one of Kobe Bryant's workout schedules and I looked at what Daigo said he did, and they both said actually about 6 hours, 6 hours every day, right? I don't know, and I think Daigo said he did about 6 hours every day. He talked about his routine. Didn't really go into what that meant, but he definitely said this is a lot of time I do every day. And then Kobe had like kind of similar to what he said with the Olympic athletes. Like he was like, I go 2 hours, I take a break, and then I rest up 2 hours, 2 hours. You know, it's kind of how I structure my day. And I definitely agree with what you said about using all your tools that you have towards one goal. I think it's something that's definitely lacking in the community. I don't think a lot of players can see themselves winning on the highest level, though. I think a lot of people are aiming for, like, to be known, to be good, but I don't think a lot of people are actually aiming to be the best. You know, I think a lot of people are to be great. I think a lot of people just want to be Melee on the top 100, or they want to be good in their local scene, but I don't think a lot of people are actually aiming to be, like, actually be the best. I think a lot of people, it just seems too far off. And especially, I think a lot of the competitors, it's kind of negative. The idea that you've been saying you want to be the best sounds like, oh, I don't know. That's unrealistic. So I think that's some way that makes the community stagnate a little bit because people aren't pushing themselves as much as they can. But yeah, I think that definitely it's not. Sometimes I go into it when I go to a Melee tournament. I don't see a lot of people who are necessarily competitors. I see a lot of people that want to be validated, that want to do good, but I don't see a lot of people that actually just want to compete and really push themselves.
Yeah. Oh, and like again to people in the chat, this is not to say that it's reasonable to do that for Melee. Yeah, like I don't think it's reasonable to expect somebody
For the
to drop
sponsored players,
everything.
I don't see why not. Like, no.
Yeah, yeah.
SFAT, the people that like Johnny. There's a lot of people in SoCal live off Melee, right? So I don't think it's unreasonable at all. You know.
Mm-hmm. Like
Shots.
maybe they don't, maybe not like 40 hours a week, right? But you could you could practice for like an hour a day, right? Like, is an hour a day really that much?
If you're a professional player, you're not playing at least. Honestly, in my opinion, if you're a professional player and you live off Melee, you have no excuse to be doing anything less than 4 to 6. If that's what you do, if like you don't work, then I would expect. At least. I would expect 4 or 5 hours. You know, I mean, if you and especially at least if what you're telling me. If you're telling me like, yo, I want to win a tournament, and you're telling me you're practicing like 2 hours a day, I just don't believe you. You know, that's just like your actions don't reflect that. You know, your actions reflect that you want to get the placing that you have, because to get over where like it's like you can't say I want to do better than I'm usually done, but you continue to do the same workload, right? You have to be willing to do more. But that, again, I think that comes into you have a certain amount of time in your day, right? You have it like in you have how much you can really extend yourself. You know, a lot of people like you have college, you're in college, or you have a job, you have a girlfriend, and you want to play Melee, and then you have another hobby, right? And how much can you really give to all those things and be good at them? You know, if you want to be great at something, you have to cut out a lot of those things to focus in on it, right? Maybe you can only do 3 of those things. Maybe you can only do 2 of those things, but you have to be willing to cut those other things out. And I think that's a sacrifice that you have to be willing to make if you really want to be like, you know, top level. You have to be willing to give up some things, you know?
Yeah. So like, since DeJuan's in the same situation as me, we've talked about this a couple of times basically, and we both basically feel like it's impossible to give 100% to like to work, like health.
Yeah,
right?
Fitness. Yeah.
Girlfriend, and Smash. So those are like the 4 really big things in both of our lives, right?
Yeah. That's your pie chart. You know, you got the little circle.
Yeah, and so like giving 100% to all 4 of them is not really reasonable unless you have literally no free time, like actually just no free time.
I don't even know if you. Yeah, I don't know if you could actually do like that's a lot to be good at your job, to have a good to take care of your body, have a healthy relationship with your girlfriend. And improve at the game, right? Not just maintain. You have to be for you guys, right? It's like, especially like you know, you want to improve. You don't want to stay where you're at. So, that would take something else. That might take even more time. So that's super unrealistic, I think.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and then people are saying in the chat that playing is not practice, and yeah, I agree. Playing can be practice, but it is not always practice.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're like, they're not always the same thing. I definitely have a shit ton of empty hours where I was definitely playing, but I don't think I was really practicing. You know?
Yeah, like I think everybody that's ever played Melee has like played friendlies. It's getting to like 2 a.m. It's 3 a.m. and it's you look at the characters and it's like Mewtwo versus Bowser.
Yeah, don't have those sessions, guys. Don't have those sessions. Just go home. Just go home. It's over. You know, I think you as a player need to know how much time you can give in a session. Like I'm learning for myself, I have about 2-3 good hours in me, and then I need to take a break. You know, if in a session where I can actually be like, okay, this is like I'm after a while, and I might even have some pieces where I'm like, but you know, you need to know, and most of us can't give a good performance for 6 to 8 hours straight. You know, you have to take breaks. So don't. I know it seems fun, but don't get if you're getting to the point where you're playing Roy and DK, just go home. It's over, you know.
Or like go do something else and come back, right?
Yeah, something else and come back, take a break, go get something to eat. You know, it's fine. You know, chill out for a little bit, stretch your hand. That's important.
Yeah.
You know, but don't get to the point where you're doing Falcon Dittos on Hyrule Temple. I mean, unless you're having one of those days. But otherwise, you know, just call it.
Yeah, like you have to recognize when you're playing. Like Melee's fun. Melee's a lot of fun. It is fun. And that's the trap, right?
Yeah.
Is that all of our top players still think Melee's fun, which is very impressive. Which is very, very impressive. And so like that's why we get into traps where it's like you stop playing to get better, and like you stop, and then you start playing for fun.
Yeah. And I don't want to. I guess I don't want to put that. You should still have your fun, but it shouldn't. There needs to be that time for it, right? Where that time, like, hey, I fuck around this time.
Mhm.
You don't. I remember. You don't want to get to the point where me and Daryl we played till 6 a.m. and by the end of it, it was like I was trying to beat him with Falco without using Shine because, you know, like don't have that session. You know, that doesn't need to happen. But yeah, it is fun, and I think that's definitely something that doesn't want to get lost.
Mhm.
You know.
And I just want to stress again how impressive that is, that we all still think the game is fun. There's a lot of games out there where players play it for the paycheck. I think famously Boxer for StarCraft.
That's the first professional I ever even heard of, really.
Yeah, he's world famous, like Korea celebrity, StarCraft legend. He basically said that at one point the game just stopped being fun for him, and he treated it like an actual job. So it was like he clocked in, and then he clocked out, and that was it. And it was like, that's very impressive considering he was the best player for such a long time, and then a top player for a while after. But like, I can't even imagine not enjoying Melee and still playing it in tournament. That sounds so awful.
That actually does sound awful, especially with the he was still like making six figures.
He was 7. Yeah, closer to 7.
He was making that much. Wow! I remember the first time I heard about when I learned that gaming was going to be a real thing was someone told me he was making like 100,000 a year or something. I was like, that's real.
They started getting. I think when after he retired, and like a little bit during, StarCraft players started getting commercial deals. So they were making a lot of money outside of tournaments and outside of their teams.
Okay.
Like Jaedong is actually a celebrity. Like actually, so.
That's crazy. Yeah, I remember. I've seen their like their intros. They have they're holding their keyboards. You know, that game's actually sick as fuck.
Yeah, I think StarCraft's cool. But yeah.
Yeah, that's all I got. That's all I got to share.
Yep. I think we covered pretty much everything, and I think we do agree.
Oh yeah, definitely. I think we're in alignment on a lot of things.
Throwing hours is not true effort.
No, not at all.
Like saying that you actually tried your best, you probably have not tried your best. And like, you should use all of the resources available to you, especially like if. Like, we have so many resources now.
Yeah.
PPMD still answers questions on Smashboards. Just think about that. Think about that real quick. Think about that in literally any game. Can you imagine going on a web forum and, like, Kobe's answering your questions about basketball? Hell no.
That's 6 foot.
And people aren't taking advantage of this. That makes no sense. Drug Fox still answers questions, too. It makes no sense to me.
That'll be shit about it. And I think to touch on that, my last point is that a lot of times I think that if you are trying your best and you really know it, I don't think it feels the same way. I don't know. I feel like there's some sense of like if you've given it your all.
Yeah, like it's obvious, right? Like okay, like people like Olympians that get like bronze or like. Not that that's bad, but like I'm sure like every Olympian that gets bronze has wanted to get gold.
Yeah,
Olympians don't walk around saying like, "Oh, I tried my best and I got 3rd." You know they tried their best. They don't have to say it. You know.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
Again, like I don't think it's reasonable. For a lot of situations, for people to like truly try their best, it's just don't say that you are. it's insulting, right?
Yeah, it is insulting to the people that actually do.
like like in school, I know people that tried their best at school.
Uh-huh.
One of my friends in college, okay, this is what one of my friends in college did scholastically, so that he could basically follow his dream. He's Iranian.
Yeah.
He moved here on a I guess it's a student visa for high school.
Yeah.
And due to the U.S. political climate, if he ever left the U.S., he was not allowed to return. His family was not allowed into the U.S.
Yeah.
By the time we graduated, he had not seen his family in 8 years.
Damn.
That's some shit. Okay.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
He was consistently top of the class. He worked really hard. He was also really smart. But when we graduated, near the end of it, everybody's like, "Oh, like what are you gonna do after school? Right? Are you gonna go to work? Are you gonna do like PhD?" Basically, he said he was gonna do a PhD, but he said that for him, he was having a really hard time deciding whether he wanted to stay in the U.S., right, and basically like follow his dream of like doing research in like aerospace engineering, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Or should he do a PhD program at a worse school in Canada?
One second.
And
Two
be
seconds.
okay.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Where did I go to uni? I went to the University of Michigan.
All right. Continue. What? All right. So follow his dream.
Okay. And he was basically deciding should he continue his PhD at Michigan, and basically stay here and never see his family for the rest of his life,
Oh.
or move to Canada and do a PhD at a worse school and be able to see his family. And so he chose to go to Canada, right?
Yeah.
And so that would be a failure, basically, quote unquote, because he didn't follow his actual dream, and like that's not from like lack of effort, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So like that's a situation where somebody can say I tried my best, and I'd be like, yeah, dude, this situation's just fucked.
Yeah.
Like
No, for sure.
like your decisions are like do what you want to do and never see your family ever again, or like go to Canada. Like yeah, that's
a good example.
yeah. And that's not like unreasonable, right? Because like he was still like a normal guy, right? Like you party on the weekends, you de-stress, you study when you should, when you have to, you do your schoolwork, blah 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 blah. So like yeah, those are the situations where I would say you failed and it really fucking sucks. But it's not because you didn't try as hard as you could. You just got screwed over by something.
Yeah, circumstance doesn't allow us all to have the same things.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, it just didn't work. Like, it just wasn't. The hand he was dealt, that just wasn't an option. You know?
Okay. Yeah, I think that's all I got, pretty much.
That's all I got too, man. That was a good talk. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, it was fun.